Hi guys, it's Mace. Welcome back to my channel. So today I want to talk to you about awareness. So it's been an observation of mine about the programming that we have gotten growing up, maybe all our lives. But the basic things that they basically put into us is that we should go to school, get a job, and just live in the system, um, how they told us, right? And I think a lot of people have been living like that for forever. But no, we are having a new age where a lot of people are coming to terms with the fact that they may not be as fulfilled in the system and they want a change. But the thing that I have noticed with this programming is that we've been taught to operate autopilot, on autopilot. Now, what does this have to do with awareness? Well, I think that we have been cut off from ourselves. But what is awareness? Awareness is being one with ourselves from the observer of our soul. And the observer of our soul, what I mean by that is mastering the art of observation. But observation of what exactly? That is what I'm going to get into next. Because awareness, in addition to it being one with yourself, it's also being aware of your senses, your five liberal arts. And your five liberal arts are your five senses that we were introduced to growing up, that's seeing, hearing, tasting, smelling, and feeling. So I think that awareness is a key component of our daily lives. And without it, we'd be drifting and just, as I mentioned, operating off autopilot because it is in our nature to use our senses. We were made with them. We were made with our senses. So it doesn't make sense for us to be cut off. Now we're living and entering an age where a lot of people are becoming more conscious and more aware. So using your senses should be key to learning and operating. But I also want to talk about our sixth sense. What's the sixth sense? Well, I consider our sixth sense. I always have a tongue twister moment there. Sixth sense is our thoughts. So our thoughts is how we interpret the sensations that we feel, we see, we hear, we taste. So going back to being the observer of our soul, because that's key, it is knowing and becoming aware that we are not the things around us. We are only an observer. We are an observer of our thoughts. And I also want to talk about the ego side of our mind because ego is that fake identity that we give ourselves or we adopt from people to protect us. It's I'm not this, I'm that. I'm not this, I'm that. And it keeps us boxed in. And sometimes it blocks us from being self aware because ego is almost like vanity. And we need to be aware of the fact that we are not our ego. We are an observer of our ego, and we need to differentiate who we are different from our ego. And that's why it's important to be self aware, aware of our thoughts, also be an observer of our thoughts. What are the things that we think, and what are the things that we feel, and how our mind interprets it? Because our thoughts, it governs how we operate. So, with awareness, we become more present and intentional about our lives. So, in the system that we are operating off, it's like they place a carrot in front of our face, and, we should autopilot towards that goal, and we don't ever get the chance to think clearly when we're on autopilot. And it's important for us to be able to slow down and observe ourselves. And and another thing is that the system doesn't allow us to slow down and be more intentional and present with ourselves. So if you've been taught all your life how to be on autopilot, it's basically second nature now. How do you slow down? How do you become more aware and present? And the simple answer for that is going out into nature and let nature, the oldest university before they made school, teach us. So right now I'm observing a little bit of nature, and what I can see are trees. I can hear the birds. I can see the bugs. You know, some of the leaves on the trees are brown, there is mostly green. But what am I learning from nature? And what are we supposed to learn from nature when we go out there and we ground in nature? You know, it's the presence. You realize that the trees sway gently and they're not in any rush to go anywhere. The birds are just operating out there, they're making sounds. And nature is how we will learn to become one with self, to be like a gentle river, not rushing through life. If you go to the river flows at its own pace. I feel like we we were not taught, or we were not in this system, we're not allowed the opportunity to slow down and be present. So we really have to think about and allow ourselves to think and observe our thoughts, be the observer of our soul, observe ourselves, observe nature, observe animals. I feel like that's something that we've been cut off from, because in the system, I'll go back to the system, it's all about being in a four-walled place on a computer, working away if you work around computers, or being in a factory, or being in a hospital if you work in a hospital, or being in a classroom if you work in a classroom. Um, but I'm not telling anyone to go quit your job, because we do need money, but we cannot place money above ourselves and knowing ourselves, because through knowing ourselves is how we will be able to find different aspects of fulfillment out there, find what we find joy in doing.
So yeah, guys, let's become more aware of our senses, being an observer of ourselves and of the world. So you've made it to the end of my video. Thank you so much for watching, and subscribe and like, and stay tuned for more. Bye.